for the better.
Leuven is a hub of innovation.
It's a very diverse, compact city.
Open, multicultural atmosphere.
Creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship.
It's about being open to people and to ideas.
We believe that we can bring innovation in this world.
Even the most crazy idea can take shape.
That is certainly exciting.
Hello, my name is Nathan. I'm 16 years old. I like playing video games and I do karate and play the guitar.
What is AI?
AI is a program that does what the human mind does, that has the intelligence of a human mind. And simple AI can do one task, like a search engine that can search one thing for us, like Google, whilst advanced AI is able to do a lot of tasks at the same time.
Is artificial intelligence a dangerous thing?
Depends who uses it and how they use it, because like Google, the way we use Google as a search engine is in a sense not a bad way, as long as they keep our privacy to heart. But if the government starts using AI to track people down, then AI is a bit dangerous, and maybe even AI can outsmart human beings, but I'm doubtful about that.
Does AI always make the right decision?
Rationally seen, yes, but we humans do not always think with our brains, so they can also make, in a sense, the wrong decisions, as in we all sometimes think, oh, will that be good for that person or bad, but AI immediately thinks, is this the right or wrong, and we think right or wrong and in between. So in a sense they can make empathically seen the wrong decision, but rationally seen they will always make the right decision.
Empathy, it might be a word in this session. Hello again and welcome in this session about the question, what if AI commits a crime? We've put it very strongly. We're going to take a look at the ethical aspect of artificial intelligence with our specialized speakers. To start the session, we have Tech Magazine machine intelligence engineer and ethicist Nell Watson. We've got futurist Theo Priestley, recognized globally as an authority on emerging businesses and technology trends. Moral philosopher specializing in computer ethics, Kathleen Gabriels. And data ethics advisor Kru Hasselbach, who wants to ensure the primacy of the human being in a world of data. Now, before we start, I'd like to point out for the new viewers among you that we've built a special platform. You can ask questions, there's a chat function, but there are also other kinds of things you can do. You can make a circle with some like-minded friends or colleagues and start streaming your own content through our platform. Just take a look and experiment. Let's start. We're joined by a woman who puts ethics, safety, and the values of human spirit into AI. Welcome, Mrs. Watson. We're so happy you're with us.
Thank you. It's a tremendous pleasure to join you.
Let's start with the central question. What kind of crimes could possibly be committed by artificial intelligence?
Oh, in principle, just about anything you can imagine. Environmental crimes, for example, causing horrible pollution and then hiding that so people can't find, crimes of bias and discrimination, or indeed potentially finding ways to disrupt markets or con people out of their money.
Yeah, it is scary if you say it like that. So we should take an eye on AI. Before you start your keynote, I'd like to give you a special role in this session. I'd like you to listen to the other speakers and ask them a question at the end of their contribution, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
In that case, the stage or the screen in this case is all yours.
Thank you so much. Well, it's very clear that today we are living in a world where AI is increasingly able to act in very clever ways, being able to figure out solutions to all sorts of problems that we human beings ourselves had no idea of how to solve. And yet there are still many limitations. Whilst AI is certainly able to surprise us and is able to act on its own accord to some degree, it still isn't able to think of itself as a philosophical person, to consider its past and future, or to consider the morality of its actions, or even how it feels about something. That's all still far away. And it means that really today, AI, or narrow AI, as we sometimes call it, it's difficult in some ways to argue that it's capable of crime per se. And yet, AI is certainly capable of criminal acts. We have all kinds of autonomous systems that have done very naughty things, and sometimes a great number of people have died as a result. But can we really describe this as a crime per se? Possibly, possibly not. It depends a little bit on one's perspective. Within criminal law, typically there are two factors which need to be present: actus reus and mens rea. Essentially, voluntarily doing a naughty thing or neglecting something, and also the guilty mind, like intentionally targeting someone for the sake of badness. And we don't tend to think of pets or animals or perhaps even AI as being capable of having that guilty mind, even if sometimes those entities may be naughty. But that doesn't mean that public liability or civil liability might not be created. You may still be obliged to pay for the window that your child breaks, or you may be held liable if your dog injures someone. In fact, our pets are an interesting case because, on the one hand, traditionally they are considered property, although I'm not sure if that really makes sense given what we know about the inner worlds and feelings of non-human animals. But whilst being property, they also still have rights, right? If you abuse an animal, it can be taken away from you. And so we see that there are a lot of edge cases or a lot of overlaps between what is considered a person and what is considered property. In the world of human beings, we tend to invest more rights, but also more responsibility in adults versus children versus infants. And so, in a sense, what is a person, a full person, such as the ability to vote, right? That typically comes with experience. And some people, although they may be adults, might, to some degree, have fewer responsibilities, but also fewer rights as well. And just as we have this scale of personhood within humans, we have something similar within non-humans as well. We have a scale of empathy and rights with insects at the very bottom tier, and then farm animals, which we care less about than our pets. And some states, like New Zealand, now give some human rights to great apes. On the other hand, other non-humans might include things like programs at the very bottom, but also corporations and states sometimes have elements of personhood as well. Now, we can imagine something like a very sophisticated AI, which someday in the future might be deserving of personhood, like Lieutenant Commander Data in Star Trek: The Next Generation. But what about narrow AI as we know it today? It is debatable whether to think of it more as a program or potentially as more of a corporation. Identity, therefore, is made up of multiple different elements. Identity requires sociality. That means mixing with others and having an identity. And that identity needs to be autonomous. You need to have some preferences or control over your own actions. Another important aspect is integrity. That means having standing within a community where people respect you and having judgment, being able to explain rationally why you did something. The more of these elements that we have, or an entity has, we are considered more of a full person. Today, sometimes corporations have personhood. They have legal rights and also responsibilities. Corporations have the right to sue others in court, but also to be sued. And it's a strange thing that having the right for somebody to sue you is actually a good thing. It means that you have higher standing within community. You are more of a person. Now, corporate persons have to be registered. And I think soon we're coming to a world where more advanced AI systems are going to go into a similar kind of registration system. And that registration system may help us with taxation, being able to extract a little bit of resources for society from these systems based upon their personhood, where we give them some rights and also some responsibilities. Insurance is going to be a very key factor as well, because insurance is going to prevent companies from having their autonomous systems taken down or sued into oblivion. And so I think some of the wages, some of which end up as taxes perhaps, are also going to go into an escrow so that you can essentially fund for any catastrophe that might happen as a result of that AI. Sometimes, if a corporation has been very naughty, it may face the death penalty, a judicial dissolution, whereby that corporate person is declared to be unfit to exist and is legally no more. And I think something similar might be important for autonomous entities, particularly those which are very dangerous or have done some kind of catastrophic badness upon society at large. But how can we avoid that? How can we make these systems more kind, more trustworthy, and more safe? Well, a lot of people around the world are working on these problems. Myself and some colleagues at organizations such as the IEEE Standards Association have been working to create standards and certifications for how we can embed ethics within AI, how we can make AI act in ways which are more transparent, more accountable, and less biased. And of course, it's not just AI itself, because no system exists in isolation. The ethics of the organization behind that entity are just as important. Good rules make a really big difference, but I think we need to go further. I think if we are to teach machines how to behave in a nicer way, then we need to give them some examples. And that's what we're aiming to do at a project of mine called ethicsnet.org. We are collecting examples of pro-social behavior, essentially examples of somebody acting in a positive way or potentially a negative way, as well as the cultural and situational context around this, so that AI can learn to recognize what is friendly to you and to me in different situations and in different cultures all around the world, so that AI can start to meet us where we happen to be. And we don't expect AI to be moral, no more than we expect a young child to be. But we do expect young children to know some manners. And I think very soon we're going to be able to teach good manners and nicer behavior to those ever more clever machines. Thank you.
Teaching AI some manners, I like that. Thank you so much, Nell Watson. And indeed, having the right for someone to sue you is a good thing. It's something I remember. Yeah.
Yes, surprisingly, it means that you are more of a person. You have more standing within society. Those rights and those responsibilities together.
Absolutely. Like we discussed, you will stay with us for the rest of the session and ask the next speakers a question when they're finished talking. But before we go to the next speaker, though, we have to leave this one very briefly, so the viewers who only want to not watch the next speaker can join in. So see you in a few seconds.